right. I'm streaming, but I need to be able to get to where I'm streaming. No. If you can see me, holler, write something, especially on YouTube. Live video, let's see. Connect. No. Well, I hope I'm streaming. If you can see it, say something somewhere to avoid my embarrassment. Well, I can see that I'm up there. Bit rate around 3,000. Ah, hello, Roberto. Thanks for putting a post in. So, I'm alive. But I'm really sorry if you're in one of the subgroups like Battletech. I don't know if your posts will actually be seen in my thread, but I hope it will. So what am I doing today? So I better look at the camera. Kind of useful. So in front of me today, I have some sort of generally 15mm scaled mechs. I think they're probably a bit smaller than that in resin. They're kind of home sculpted, not by me. And I thought I'd try and do like a short video this time of me just preparing the resin. They're resin models. And I'm going to put one together. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time chatting, but I will sort of zoom into the product. Surviving. Hello, glad you're surviving. And, you know, hopefully if I can see some of your chat messages coming up, I'll be able to see them and I'll be able to respond. But sorry if I don't, because it might be that the technology is not working good enough to pull every single message back. But if it does, hopefully I'll say hello. Right, so I shall switch to the view down here. So let's have a think about what product I've got and what I'm doing. So these are resin mechas. This is based on a Battletech model called the Banshee. And they're homebrew kits that were sculpted by a person called Orco1. I think most people in the Battletech and probably 15mm scale hobby are aware of Orco1. It's done a lot of good sculpts that were really just homebrew, small run resin kits. And I have another one of them. I have the finished product. It's always best to show one you've done earlier, isn't it? So this is a Hellhound, which I did about 5 or 6 years ago. And I put it on a wooden MDF hex base to sort of keep it in line with the whole Battletech theme. Whereas these guys have just been stuck in a drawer ready to do for a while. I was talking last night to a friend of mine, Zach, and he mentioned he wasn't overly keen on this sculpt. So let's move in and talk about that anyway. So if I zoom in. Yeah, so obviously there's a missile pod on the shoulder, on the torso there, and he wasn't so keen on that because it looks a bit big. I think there's a variant of this that has this. This is obviously a small laser on the back, and I think that's meant to be an SRM, but it does, for a short-range missile, it does look quite big in terms of that pod. Let me just check that it's in focus. I do like the head though. I mean, it has that Punisher look, doesn't it? Even though it's called a Banshee, that sort of skull. So when I look at that, it makes me think that I should paint that white, really, when I get to that stage. Obviously starting to think about painting already, a bit early in the process. Yes, as I was saying, I do believe those are small lasers, perhaps pointing on the back. I don't know what variant this might be, but I know the primary variant has a PPC, which is probably meant to be this weapon here on the arm. I think that's a PPC, and these would be twin medium lasers, I think, and then the other hand has a couple of lasers in there as well, possibly small lasers. So yeah, my friend Zach, that you'll see him, Avamango, he goes by on the forums. He's up in London. I'm sort of south of London in terms of location geographically. I think he converted one of these. He took the larger pod off the side and put a smaller SRM on there to scale it better. And I'm guessing as well these are small lasers on the side there in that right hand. And twin rear facing lasers. Again, they're kind of large, aren't they? But there you go. I'm quite happy with it. I'm gonna build it as is. I'm not gonna cut it up and change parts. It's an older kit that I've had for a long time, so I'd rather just get it done. Well, I had a bit of a problem getting one of the feet off when I was clipping it apart the other day. Caused some damage, and quite simple to put that together though. But they just sort of, the whole thing clipped off while I was doing that. The missile pod doesn't look so funky to me. Oh, so yeah, so you think it's okay? I think it's okay. I mean, it's suffered a bit coming out of the mould as well. I can see some of the squares have sort of been stretched a little, possibly, but it's okay. And a couple of little aerial type things in the side that are probably bound to be very fragile. Sort of look out for those. Really, I wouldn't. I'll paint them, but tempting to swatch them out for brass wire or something that's not going to snap after a few years of play in a game. So yeah, let's have a look at the whole thing kind of generally together then. So I'll get rid of that foot that's a bit broken because I've got two kits here. So yeah, so it has a bottom torso section. This is where I can't even work out what the front is. A leg either side of there. In fact, I'm missing the other torso. I'm only going to make one kit. I will have the other piece somewhere, but it's not here, so I'm going to make one kit of this and then find that other piece of torso that will be sitting in a tray somewhere. Yes, so the torso has the two legs either side. It's quite simple build. There's just sort of a space there, really. I mean, if anything, I'm a bit disappointed that in fact, I'm missing a leg too. That the legs are so straight, a kind of uniform, isn't it? Style of leg that's so kind of normal for Battletech. It's disappointing, but it's the way these things happen. Quite often, Battletech mechs they look quite dynamic in the artwork. When they're produced in a model form, they're just standing to attention, and you know, that's nice in a way, but it would be occasionally nice to get something that's got a little bit more dynamism in the way it's posed. So it's just going to be two legs like that. Now I think that's the rear then, isn't it? That looks like the back. Oh, my stream's gone offline. Oh, nearly there. I wonder why that was. Not good streaming day. Anyway, so the two legs attach on like that, and I'll probably pin them to sort of make sure they're glued on well. And then the upper torso, which is this section, just sits on the top there. Right, so I'm going to start clipping then. Yeah, and this is the Hellhound, which I've done before, and this is the sort of thing I'll be aiming for in terms of finish. Nothing too outstanding. I've just done a camo scheme with an airbrush, put a couple of decals on there, and then done some pin washes and general weathering on there, and a bit of work on the cockpit. Obviously the canopy, this doesn't have canopy glass, other than you can count the being a glass inside the canopy inside the eyes, I guess. That could be done in a red, couldn't it? That would give it a kind of a glowing red look through the skull. Sort of generally thinking as I do it. Dremel the squares off and redo them. I could do, I'm not going to though. I mean, I know what you mean though. It's they're just sort of flat looking. I think I can salvage them with a reasonable paint job. But yeah, they're not brilliant. These ones are much better, aren't they, on the Hellhounds? There's sort of nice little holes there. Just generally speaking, the whole thing looks a little bit more confident looking. It's got the twin weapon on this side. Hi, Roberto. Oh, no. I've already said hello to Roberto. That's coming a bit delayed on my other stream. So yeah, what tools am I going to use to clip this up? It's resin. I'm just going to get clipping. The danger is you can damage things, which you just have to sort of deal with. Years of doing this, and I know that I will occasionally damage something by just recklessly clipping at it, but there you go, that's just clipped that bit off. This bit looks a bit easier, there's not much looks like you could damage underneath here. Tend to go on easy, start it out, clip through. I guess if I had a Dremel with a blade on it I could do that. Yeah, a little bit of force there and I'm left with a chunk of resin underneath and some debris. So torso, I won't worry that one. Legs I'm going to use these two. So that's the one with a little bit of a cracked piece of damage on the bottom, which I'll repair. Although I'll still need to clean up the foot. And this bit needs a little bit of a clean up underneath there. So first thing I'll do is find a blade. Yeah, so it's interesting these days. There's a lot. I feel like we're at the cusp of a point in time where nearly everybody's going to have a 3D printer at home. And what's it going to be? 10 years? 5 years? Maybe 5 more years, and you'll be buying them like we did with laser printers that went, not lasers, colour inkjets. I mean, everybody had to have a colour inkjet, didn't they? You wanted to print your photos out, and that seems to have sort of died a death a bit. You know, people still have colour printers at home, but they tend to just keep their photos on whatever cloud service they've got. The next big thing will probably be a home-based 3D printer. I mean, they're getting there, aren't they? The Formlabs ones that form the model out of a pool of resin, and that's general style of 3D printer, really do high-res stuff, and maybe that's where it's going, but it seems to be a bit messy pouring resin. And I do have some models from, are they called Hero Forge? I think they're Hero Forge, and they've been printed on a Formlabs, where you build up a framework around it. Rather than nylon, it's using the resin, and they're so fragile. I had them break a couple of times, so that is a problem with them. I think, and with a mech this big as well, you'd get some fragile stuff on there if you use that Formlabs style print. Nylon print, obviously, you can do this with the higher resolution 3D printers, but you'll get a lot of the, I mean, what you've still got on this day and age of resin casts are just perfectly smooth edges from a decent casting resin. Oh, Rogers, Jonathan, you've posted something. What have you said? Oh, there was me thinking my friend Jonathan Rogers was watching this video, and he's actually just posted a comment on my Facebook homepage to say that my new dog looks cute. We've just had a border terrier join the family today. So yes, 3D printers, we're all going to have one, aren't we? But I don't know that the resin Formlabs ones are strong enough, in the sense that the models come out very fragile, and I've had a few of those. And also, the nylon ones you tend to see the resolution lines in them, which maybe doesn't make them totally ideal for going straight from the printer. You have to do a lot of prep work on the pieces, and I know there's a sort of an interim stage at the moment where people are printing in 3D and then having resin casts made after cleaning the model up, after getting rid of some of the 3D lines and the rough texture. Of course, this one was hand sculpted by Orco1, and then after his hand sculpting, he would have just cast a master in resin and made the mould from there for a short run of models. Yeah, Banshee, that's what I'm doing here. So as you saw me fettling away there, basically with resin, you can kind of carve yourself away on it. It's not as tough as a metal model, but at the same time, with some experience using this, you just sort of carve your way to clean it up, and you get a generally smooth finish after doing that. So I was just working my way around it, and I could see under the bottom there that there's a kind of a lip has formed from the casting there too, and I was just cleaning that up. I mean, this is nearly as clean as I need to do. I'm not a perfectionist, you know, I'm not doing this for like, I'm doing this to play the game rather than to make a showcase standard finish, so I'm not one to really go to town on every tiny detail. So underneath the main torso I can see straight away there's bits that are reaching the limit of my eyesight, which include tiny little bits of seams and miscast areas, and the chunk on the bottom there, which is obviously going to take a little bit of multiple fettling to get it off. I recommend you pull the knife towards the finger, because that way you're more likely to spill blood on it, which is part of the ceremony of any model production process. But yeah, it's just like slowly carving it off, really. I could just sand it down. If I had, you know, if you had a, not a belt sander, but a disc sander or something in your hobby workshop, you could just shove it on that. But I think there's also that risk if you use something like that you could damage more than you want to. It's kind of quite controlled with a blade. And slowly trimming it down there. So yeah, printing with resin definitely does look sharper resolution wise. Yeah, I mean, any breaks I've had have been due to careless dropping, but it has resulted in like an arm or something falling off the model rather than a little dent or a bend that you might get with a plastic or a metal model. You know, if you dropped a metal Battletech model on the floor, you might get an arm fall off or a bent PPC or something. If it was made out of the resin print stuff, it might well fall apart a bit more. I think that will change. I think the resins will get harder. The resins will get easier to clean up as the sort of people with the material science skills go to town and make a more consumer version. So you're paying, you know, at the moment for a Formlabs 3D printer, you know, you're upwards of the sort of £1,000 more, $1,000 or $1,500 even, to get all the kit you need, and then the cost of the resin. So it's still just out of the, well, quite a way out of the standard consumer level, unless you've got the cash to splash. Loads of money. Yeah, so I've got a little bit of muck tied in there as well, just cleaning it up. That might be some part of the mould, actually, release agent, or part of the mould that's got stuck underneath the weapon. So there, it's nearly smooth. Probably could take a sand to smooth that down a bit more. But yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate Star Trek situation, isn't it? That machine that in Star Trek they just sort of plug in. They want a turkey dinner, and it just makes whatever they want. And potentially that's where we're heading. I have seen them talk about 3D printers that can make organic stuff already as well. So that is the next level. Some sort of organic slime that oozes out and is consolidated into something that looks like a dinner. Space food. How did I get onto this topic? So, yeah, 3D printers will probably all have one in another 5 years. You'll be able to buy the resin in cartridges like you used to with your inks, because someone will consumerize it. So rather than your ink cartridges for your ink printers, you'll end up with resin cartridges in various colours to create your new mecha that you've just downloaded the 3D file for. Look at that. So I've already bent those. Careless play while I was doing that. I have bent those two aerials, but they're kind of doing okay. But it is tempting to cut them off and just put a couple of bits of brass wire on there. I'll see how I get on. Yeah, so if you've just joined or you've caught this a bit later on, this is a sculpt by someone called Orco1. It's a Battletech model, a Banshee. And I was just discussing earlier that I think this is meant to be an SRM, but it just looks so big for an SRM. It doesn't look like a great missile pod, but I'm kind of sticking with it. I'm going to use it as it is. It looks like it's got rear-facing small lasers. Again, they look like rather large for what they are. They could have been made a little bit stubbier, but they're okay. And I think this is a PPC on the side there. So it's just looking, it's interesting that there are some sort of holes ready for the arms there. I wonder if that will just take a bit of brass rod, which I happen to have some around. It does look like my stream has dropped off again. I'm back. Yeah, kind of ropey stream this today. But yeah, brass rod goes straight in there. So I don't know why that was already made into it, but maybe they thought, maybe Orco thought, you know, I'll put a space for your pinning to take place there already, which is kind of handy, because I'll just clip off the end and I'll have a rod ready to pin. So I'm only going to make it a small stub of a bit of rod. You can sort of see there as it glints. These aren't the sharpest of clips. I was hoping for a nice clean through there, and it was more of a squash. So yeah. So I don't know why I was doing that, but I've done that already. Ready to go. And in terms of placing that, then it would be a case of just lining it up on the side there, but I've got more clean-up to do before that can be done. Brass rods, yeah, vote brass rods. That's the way to go, to pin it together and to keep it a bit cleaner. So again, just using my experience of these things to just clean up and flatten down that arm a little bit there, because I could see that it wasn't completely flush. And also I can see around the edge of where that hole is where I put the brass rod. It's got a bit of raised stuff. And of course that looks like it's where it's come off the line. Yep, definitely saw the stream dropping again there momentarily, which is a bit worrying, but hopefully I've got the picture coming through mostly for people. So right, I can see there a bubble. So how to clean that up? Well, I'm going to clean it up with a combination of things. Firstly, I can see that I could probably trim down a bit. Let's look at the other arm. I could probably trim down and get away with some slightly lower shoulder pad, which will get rid of some of that dent. So I'm going to do that to start with. Making a mess here, of course. So yeah, by just simply trimming the whole top down with the blade, I'm already I'm obviously making a little bit uneven, which I need to rectify. But it just means there's going to be less hole to fill around there. Yeah, far from perfect, but it will do. Again, as I said earlier, I'm not like a master craftsman here. I'm just trying to get this done and chatting away while I'm doing it. So yeah, and now it's a small dent in the top rather than a large one. I've just noticed the stream is just bouncing on off at the moment. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. If it keeps bouncing on and off all the time, it's no good to anybody. So this side actually also has the rod location for pinning. Handy locator. Although I can see that it's oh, it's not. It has got some, just some fluff or something in there preventing the rod's entry. Yep, that's fine as well. So I can clip this off too. I'm just going to close a couple of windows here that just seem to be doing funny things to me on Facebook. That might help with the streaming. I don't know. Yeah, if anybody is left watching and wants to comment on the streaming, because I've seen it drop out on my monitor twice or 3 times now. So yeah, there's the pinning for the right arm, and I will just clip that off. So I've got a couple of bits of rod sitting handy then. So just again, don't want to make a massive section, a massive rod. That one's done a nice clip. Yeah, so I'll just pop it out. It's just ready over there to use later on. Back to the arm with a hole in. So yeah, I have just sort of trimmed it down in an attempt on the shoulder pad generally to keep it flush and to make the hole a bit smaller by cheating a bit, by cleaning it up. And what I shall do now is I've got some green stuff somewhere, which I shall reach up for, which is a two-part material. In fact, really what I should be doing with this is not doing anything with green stuff until I get to the point where I'm ready to use a few bits of it, but I'm just going to get stuck in anyway. So I'll just trim that bit off. I don't need much, obviously it's a tiny hole, so yeah, you just cut that stuff off. And this is green stuff if you've not seen it before. It's just two-part material. Games Workshop sell it, but you can get it cheaper, you know, off eBay. And just peel the plastic off, and then just use your fingers to squish it together until it goes green. When the yellow and blue have gone green, you've got a material that's going to harden off. There are alternatives. You can use milliput, milliput's very good for filling as well. Yeah, slowly turning green there. And of course I've got way too much than I need, because I'm only going to need a small amount on there. And now I'm hoping that's the only piece of green stuff I'm going to need to do on the whole model, but who knows? If I need more, I might need to grab more. So, how about that for an exciting video of someone squishing bits of green stuff? So just take off a very tiny amount, roll it up, get the problematic piece that's got the small shiny air bubble, and then squish it in. And then I just use my thumb to squish it off as well at the same time. Yeah, I guess I could have made a smaller piece of green stuff, but there you go. I'll zoom in to the piece here so you can see the action. Yeah, so I mean really I just used my thumb, went straight in and squashed it off. And that is a reasonable repair. Although I've got a kind of slightly uneven looking top to it there, which is slightly annoying now because I've been carving it, but just Just a little bit of a trim there, and I think that's flat enough for me. So otherwise, I can see there were some other areas here that needed a bit of work. Some of it release materials from the moulds that it would have been in as well. So there's a little bit in there, and this is where I could use a tiny file. Trying to find a small rounded file. These are these Draper, I mean they're really cheap, diamond files they're called, but it cleans up okay in there. Leaves a bit of mess. So I'm looking around and for any other areas that might need a little reduction in a seam line. I can't really see any. It's looking quite clean. Yep. Okay. So that's one piece sort of cleaned up. Do you see how I do this in a total chaos? I start on one piece and then before I know it I'm on another, and then I'm jumping back to another piece. My recommendation is to finish one piece perfectly and then move on to the next. Don't do as I do, do as I say. So nearly done there. Yeah, I can see along the edge there a little bit of a seam. But really there's not, that's really clean. I mean, with all Orco's models that I used to sort of collect, like the Hellhound here, bring it into the frame again, I found them very clean and easy to build and put together. And any imperfections are covered by some weathering, or there could have been a piece of damage to a real panel during its field use anyway. I don't think there's anything more on that arm, that's done. Oh, so this was obviously the main bottom of the torso. And again, that's pretty clean. I will do a sort of dry build in a minute to see how that's going on. The main body. Again, that's pretty clean. I mean, there is a seam down there. So yeah, and this one here needed some work, just to flatten the side panel off for ready for the arm to connect. And I will be doing the drilling of the pinhole in the middle there, using a pin vise, of course. So just while I'm worried about whether this stream is working, let me just dump this model up on here so it's visible. And while you gawp at that, I will just check that the streaming is working by getting myself a browser window, dragging over here and just checking whether the stream's working. So excuse the momentary pause. I shall spin it around manually with my hand. And I can see that I'm live on Grunts 15mm. And I have 4 viewers. Let's check back on the thing. Yeah, I can see it saying it's sending the data, but I'm currently offline. And it's bouncing back and forth, going online, offline, online, offline. But I can see it on Facebook. So I'm going to keep on going on the basis that I can just see what I just did in terms of twisting it around on Facebook. So therefore any dropouts, you might get the occasional dropout, but at least it's going and it's working. That's the worst thing, to think that you might do a whole stream. I mean, at least I'm getting the model done, but you could end up doing a whole stream, couldn't you, with nothing working. Right. Ah, so you own a copy, but it's still in the box. Yeah, this is what happened to me. It was in the box for only... Oh, good morning from Texas. Good morning, Tony. Thanks for signing in. Yeah, so just to sort of recap again, I've got this mech, which is a Banshee from Battletech, and I'm just cleaning it up. It's been sculpted by someone called Orco1. I've had it in my ready-to-do box for many, many years, and I'm just sort of fettling away at it, cleaning up. And I think I'm nearly done in terms of most of the cleanup, but I've just noticed I need to do some more clipping on the leg. So I'm going to zoom out again, because you don't need to really see all the detail on that bit as I clip. Yeah, I wrecked the foot on here, but I mean it's easy to glue back together on the other one, and you can see it came off in 2 bits because I was probably a bit too vigorous with this before. So I'm going to be probably a little bit more careful and hopefully not cause that foot to come off in the process of trimming off the resin. And yeah, slowly getting there, popping it all over the place, of course, which is a bit of a problem. In your hobby room, you need to go and clean it up afterwards. As I said earlier, I think if I had a disc sander or something, which I have a small hobby disc sander in the garage, but you know, it's just as easy just to trim it off, and then I can use a blade on there now because it's resin. And the other thing is, if you use one of those disc sanders, you have got a lot of resin powder in the air around you. I don't think it's good stuff to breathe in, even when it's hardened off like it is on these. Cleaning up. And the other thing, of course, with a little bit of material left on the foot like this, is that there's no harm in using that, as in it's going to lift the foot up a little bit from the base that it's going on, and when you then build up with any grit and sand material on the base, you've got a ready-made sort of lift underneath, and there's no harm in that. He says, sort of making an excuse for myself not having to trim the whole thing off. I can also see a bit of a mould line on there, which I can scratch off. I mean, that is the benefit of these really sharp blades. This is a Swan Norton blade made in Sheffield, UK, famous for its steel during the Industrial Revolution and later. No doubt many railways were built with steel, and big ships as well had steel plate from there. Now the UK is in decline in terms of heavy industry, so most of our steel works are going, unfortunately. But we still make small handy blades for hobby crafts. Cottage industry nation. Now, of course, we're big in the finance industry around London, but unfortunately I think most of our heavy industry is gone. Apart from people like me who are making 60-ton mechs in their hobby room. Actually, this is 95 tons, isn't it? The Banshee. Yeah, 95 tons. I'd say if you were saying this was, because this is scale-wise, people sort of call this 15mm scale, but I think it's a bit small, given it's meant to be 90 tons. It's not very tall. And I suppose it is probably, you know, weight-wise, you could say it probably is still 90 tons, but maybe difficult to say. I'd have it down more at, if I was treating this as a 1/100th scale, which is 15mm, I would say this looked more like a 45 or max 55 tonnage in terms of its material size. I'm only making that judgment from years of sort of playing 15mm games and modelling them. Just doesn't look big enough in 15mm to be that heavy, to be a 95 tonner. But of course in the Battletech rules this originally was a 95 ton mech. So I can see the streams going. So I've got a set of micro saws. Yeah, micro saws, that's probably the way to go. I do have a micro saw. He reaches over. It's not mounted on the best of things, but yeah, this is the other way. Use a micro saw. Obviously I've already trimmed it off, but a micro saw blade like this would be useful. I haven't got this. This is really terrible pin vise mount type thing that this tends to like get pushed around, so I haven't used it yet. But yeah, a micro saw blade, like a jeweler's blade or something, would be handy to take off large sections like that, rather than what I did with this one, which is caused an accident because the resin fractures when you clip. So you can see on there the whole foot's come off, but that's easily recovered with a bit of super glue on there. In fact, I could try and use it. Let's see. Yeah, that does work. I mean, that's not an ideal position there because I could just trim that off with the blade anyway. But maybe that one? No, that's not. I'm not going to get a good grip on that. No, I'm not going to get a good grip on that. So anyway, yeah, micro blades. Maybe what I should do is invest in a proper pin vise to hold on to that blade, and then I can demonstrate using that on another video and do it properly. And the other thing is that now that I've got that like that, I could also now switch to a sand. And this is a little file to sand it off. So yeah, that's my intention in this video, show you every technique possible and just do everyone badly, and then you can go away and learn how to do it properly and ignore everything I've done. But there you go, you can see I'm filing that down now to quite a nice flat level. Still a bit more work on there, but I think that's enough for me, because literally when I put that on the base, it's not going to be a big issue to have that with a tiny bit of lift, because I'll build up some sand and grit around there and that'll be fine. So there we go with the leg dry fit. I'm going to trim off this. I don't know why that's there, because there's nowhere on the sides. Well, there's a bit there, there's a hole. But on this side there's no hole to take this tiny nub that's on there. So I'm going to just trim that off. But I will now just pin vise directly into there, so I can brass rod this as well. So I'm just putting that in with my nail to see how far down I've gone with the drilling, and that's enough on that leg. You know, I'm going to come back and fettle at that a little bit more. It's nearly complete now in terms of being completely flat. That'll do. So there we have that. I'm going to do a bit of brass rod in there just to judge the length of it before I clip it off. It's never more than, what, 3 or 4 mil, because I don't want a big drill hole going in, but that places it neatly. Take that off, it's about the same size as the other ones. So the broken foot, I'm just going to sand away with this file. on the front toe section. It's a custom cast Tony. It's from Orco 1, who's an American chap who, I don't know if he still does them, but for years he used to do, I think you call them garage kits, don't you? Before the age of 3D printers, he used to hand sculpt all these models. If he's still doing them, I'd like to be in touch with him, but I don't know if he still is. But he has a knack of someone that give him a few bits and he can quickly pull a scale mech together. Artistic skill. I know I can't do it, I'll just end up putting too big a blobs together. The arms will look too long or not in proportion. So this is a bit awkward because I've snapped this off obviously when I was doing the feet, cutting off the sprue, the resin sprue, and it's quite tricky to do this bit. And again, obviously for safety purposes, make sure you pull the blade towards you, and that way it's a high risk of blood, which obviously is great for any model to get a bit of blood on it while you're making it. No, don't follow that advice, but it's just years of doing this, you end up, I don't know, I could have a terrible accident, couldn't I, on screen here, but years of doing this mean that I'm quite comfortable knowing. In fact, I mentioned it in another video, I don't want to go too much off at a tangent, but I very rarely get a cut even from a fresh blade like this, and I think it's almost like that kind of Indian nail magic where you can lay on a bed of nails. I can now slash my thumbs and fingers with a blade after doing this for 30 years, and I just get no injury. So I definitely don't have thumbs of steel, but something's happening that prevents me from getting cut. He says that, and then whoosh, the knife's gone. Right, so I think that's probably going to be enough on that. I've just trimmed that up. I'll just show you where the injury is here in terms of the damage to that foot. See, when I clipped it off, it fractured. I wasn't deliberately clipping through there, it just fractured that foot off. It's a nice clean fracture, so it's going to glue on okay. But I have got a bit of a lip on the foot. You can see that there, so that is telling me to just trim a little bit harsher on that end. Nearly done. Nearly done. And I'll be done there now. Here we go. Right, so the next thing I do is I'm going to pop all this into a pot and clean it up. So I've got in here some warmish water and just pop them all in so that they can be cleaned up. So really, I've got resin all over my fingers there. There's a little bit of washing liquid in there, so you can see that it foams up. Whoops, get it in frame. And this just removes basically hand grease and also any other muck that I happen to, like the bits of resin and things that you don't want on there. Release agent, dust, which you kind of don't want when you're gluing. So how long have I been streaming now? 50 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break now, leave all that stuff in there, just clean it up, and then I'm going to come back later to glue it together and do the base. So you can see there's the green stuff that I put in the top of that that arm, and it doesn't matter that it's getting a bit wet because it's waterproof stuff anyway. And I may clean up again further once, even after I've sprayed primer on, I may find that there's some bumps and grooves that I need to sand down. Also, because I'm just sort of wandering away here, I may end up cleaning the same bit twice. But yeah, warm water and just clean up to get rid of all the muck. And that's probably why I'll clean up all around here as well. You can see all the dust build up on there. Oh, and an old toothbrush as well. A wrecked old toothbrush just does the job to help clean that up. So yeah, you can zoom out so you can see proceedings. And I'll just switch back to me. Okay, so